All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Library Advisory Board on March 17th, 4:03 p.m. My name is Adrienne Doman-Calkins, and I'm the library manager. The chair of our board, Randy Mifflin, wasn't able to be here tonight, so our vice chair, Jane Van Kuren, will be facilitating. We might do a little bit of sharing of that as we go, since Jane's brand new as being vice chair. And so, Jane, I'll pass it to you while I bring up the agenda. And if we could just go ahead and do roll call. So when your name is called, if you just say here or present, that will suffice.
Okay, we're going to take attendance. Vishwa. Here.
I'm here.
Fritz.
Here.
Danny.
Here.
Okay. Melanie.
Here.
I'm here, Jane Van Kuren. Steve.
Here.
Danny.
Here. I'm sorry. I said it earlier.
I might have called on you earlier, too. Lily.
Here.
Okay. Counselor Browse.
Here.
And Crystal.
Here.
Okay, the meeting is coming to order at 4:05. Does everybody have a copy of the agenda?
Can you see it on the screen as well? It's shared there. Yep. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
and I'm going to click on the minutes. Tell me, sometimes it follows my navigation, sometimes it doesn't. Do you see it? Did it change to minutes?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. All right. Are there any additions or corrections, suggestions for the agenda today? Changes to the agenda? Our first order of business is to approve the February 17th minutes. And Adrienne was kind enough to bring that up on the screen. Does anybody have any corrections? Are there omissions? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I'll move to approve the minutes of February 17th.
Okay, so I heard Fritz, and who seconded it?
Steve.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. Getting to recognize our voices. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, that's passed. Let me return to the agenda. I know it's here. I've got my phone open. Okay, looks like we're gonna hear library updates. Adrienne, may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Do we have any citizen comments?
No citizen comments.
Okay, very good. So it looks like we've got quite a bit to cover in our library update. So let's get started. Thank you, Adrienne.
You're welcome. So for current services, we're still doing curbside. Everything's the same that way that you've heard about, but we're behind the scenes ramping up for our reopening. So, which is, of course, on the list here. Before I switch gears to talking about reopening, though, for other things that are going on, we just have been doing our very first computer appointments in the building. They're not actually in the library proper, they're in the meeting room. And we have a new fleet of Chromebooks that we're using for those, so Chromebook laptops. We've only had just a few. We actually invited people. Oh. That's my son. We invited some people who've been reaching out to us for tech help, or that we were referred from the senior center who really had internet access needs this year. And so they've been also, and they're regular patrons of ours and been giving us feedback about our process. And so it looks all really great. We have a couple more appointments coming, and we hope to be publicizing our computer appointments for the general public to sign up here in the next, hopefully, few days or next week. It'll be very limited, for the number of appointments, but we'll hopefully expand as we go forward. And then we will be doing appointments at the desktop computers too that are in the library. Those are almost ready to go. So at a certain point, we'll have two different locations for computer appointments. 6-word story is going on. We're in, oh my goodness, I forget. I think it's our 7th year now of the 6-word story. And I think Melanie, you're helping with that again this year, right? Is this your third
I'm judging
year?
it again.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Oh, yay. Thank you. We have a panel of judges, including esteemed authors. And a year ago when we were doing this, the 6-word story was hugely popular. It was at the beginning of lockdown, and we usually get people from across the country and sometimes even around the world. So it's always fun. And then we unveiled the winners for that in time with National Library Week, which is April 4th through 11th. Let's see, we're ramping up for summer reading. We'll have a lot more to share with you in the next couple of months about that, but we're scaling it in a way that will be similar to last year of giving away free books, hopefully inside the building, giving away the free books, also giving away craft kits that kiddos pick up each week for a series of I think it might be 6 weeks. We hope to actually have a physical presence outside in the park like we have in the past. We had to cancel that last year and do not a full-on bilingual story time in the park, but a bilingual kind of experience with a story walk and some different stations, but it will be very limited for number of people at a time rather than, a big gathering. It would be a longer period of time and people drop in and pick up their stuff and leave. And then of course the adult summer reading program as well. So we might, depending on how things go with risk level and so on, we'll pivot to all online again if we have to, but otherwise we're excited to be doing some in-person events and virtual events in the summer. And then for reopening plans, I think some of you hopefully saw an email. I shared an email with staff and the board members. We're busy ramping up for that. Right now, we're doing a lot in the facility to get the facility ready. We already had a lot in place, but we have to make it so that it's easy to come into the library but not stay in the library. It's being redesigned as a short visit. So all the furniture is being stacked and cordoned off in a couple areas. We have to make those areas secure. We're doing a little bit more, just making sure we have like one last plexiglass up and a couple more hand sanitizing stations, that sort of thing, figuring out staffing schedules. But the biggest piece is some extra staff training on some scripts for talking about masks and the customer service with all the COVID precautions and everything. It all came much more quickly than we thought it would, going from high risk to moderate. So I hope that in the next few weeks, we are inviting you as board members and some of our volunteers to a special preview. We'll most likely do a few previews in a week, so there would be some different time slots to choose from. And you would be our first guest back in the library, where staff would be interacting with you, as if you're a patron, a trusted patron, who's going to come in and not question us about why masks should be worn or anything like that. But so we can kind of practice, like, here's the new way to do X, Y, and Z. The entrances will be a little bit different. We have to count people. There's a lot of different things. But browsing would be open in almost all of the library. We expect that part of the fireplace room is going to be cordoned off. I see your hand, Melanie, in just one second. And I believe we won't have access to newspapers. I'm not 100% sure about that. Magazines might be in a different spot because I think we'll have to cordon off part of that area where we're stacking furniture. And I believe we'll be able to have access to about 2/3 of the children's room, but not the whole children's room. And then visits limited to a small number of people for a short amount of time. So 30-minute visits. And it's looking like it's going to be 20 people at a time. But I don't know hours yet or anything like that quite yet. Melanie, do you want to ask your question?
Sorry, muted. I was just going to ask if we can bring our families to that, but maybe not since there's only a small amount of people allowed, but I just wanted to bring that up.
I don't know yet, but
Okay.
I'll let you know. There's still a lot we're figuring out. I think we'll be limiting, these previews to 20 people at a time. I would like to see a mix of ages and kind of see how children interact with it too, but I don't know if we'll do that first week or not. So, but if you want, I can keep you on my list, people, someone who's interested.
Sure, my girls would love to come.
Yeah. And your girls are they middle school?
They're 16 and 17 now.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Old enough to read signs and
absolutely
be required to wear masks. Yeah. I think for like the little kids, it might be disappointing. Like Stephen, your kids are quite young, right? The library, like the toys will be put away. The house kiosk is put away.
4 and 8, yeah, it'd be a different scenario.
It'd be different. It might not be something that they necessarily want. I don't know. It depends on the kiddo. Some kids might be really sad and some might be like, yeah, I get to go back, even if it's not the same. So the puppets would be gone, all the interactive pieces, the board games, just all the toys that will be all gone. And we won't have access all the way back into the children's room. It's probably going to be about 2/3 of the way in. I think at first we thought we'd have to cordon off all of children's room, but I think we'll be able to allow access up to the back side of the picture books. So not, if you know that area, there's kind of the area where the big windows are and tables, and that part would be inaccessible. Yes, Fritz.
Okay, I have a question about the number of people. When you're saying 20 people at a time, is that just based on square footage? Is that a subjective number you come up with, or is that a number or recommendation from the system, the whole library system itself? And at what point will you be able to increase that? Is there going to be a formula for that?
Those are all really good questions. It's art and a science, to figure out the number of people in the building. So in terms of a formula, we could have more people per the formula provided by the state based on our county's risk level, but we also have to staff and monitor, and we have to rove, and we have to keep track of, are people complying with masks? Can we count the people coming and going and track all of that, and also keep our distance as staff moving through the space? So we're going to start off, and we'd rather start small and add rather than start bigger and subtract. So, and for reference, like say Beaverton City Library, which has 40,000 square feet, and we have, if all of our space is available, we have 14,000, but it's probably going to be more like, I don't know, 10,000 or so. Beaverton started off with 20 in their whole big space of 2 floors, and then they went to 25, and they've been open for a few months now, and they're more recently at 30. So I feel like for us to start with 20 is a nice way for staff to adjust, for the public to get the word. We'll still offer curbside throughout, and then we can add, rather than if we started with say 30 and then went, oh wow, we actually are really struggling to meet our other requirements of monitoring and cleaning, for what we need to clean. So, but I think we'll be able to increase it probably from 20 to 25 and in not too long. I mean, I don't want to guarantee, dates or anything, of course, but I think it might be longer before we we up it too much more, because the other piece of how we're arriving at that number and the 30-minute visits is we want to serve as many people as we can safely, right? So if we let people in for longer, they're going to take up more
Can't have many
space,
I understand.
right? Yeah, so kind of short and sweet, come in, and 30 minutes is kind of seen as on the long end. I think some people will just come pick up their holds, browse one area, check that out, and leave, because there's not incentive to use the library as a living room the same way as in the past.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's not an exact metric for when we bring the furniture back or when we allow the increased time. So it's not that we have to wait for us to get into the low risk category, but I think as the square footage changes and we can have more people and more people are vaccinated and we don't have to monitor quite as much, then it will get easier to do, increase services for everything. And these days, I should have started all of this out with I feel like I'm learning new information every other day, and plans are developing really quickly and shifting too. So just anything that we learn here tonight, or if anybody's listening to the recording, the best place to get the information is to go to our website. And there's the first item on the website is about curbside. The second one is about our reopening plans.
Right.
And as we're, at least for the public, as we're sharing information, that will be the most up to date.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good questions. Any other questions? This is all really big news. So let's see. So I mentioned the preview week you would be invited to, and we'll be asking you for your feedback there too. And I think, I'm not sure exactly what that will look like, but we might have a little questionnaire or something like that for you to give us some feedback. For you to give us feedback. Did I say that wrong? Anyway, but and then we might tweak our procedures a little bit. So we'd be looking for all manners of things. How easy was it? What's the flow like? Do you have recommendations for the space or customer service? Anything there? And then if all goes well, the county continues to stay, knock on wood, in where we're at or better, then the following week would increase access to the general public, but not announce it in a really big way. We just quietly refer our curbside patrons, say, hey, if you want, you can come in. It's probably, and this is brand new information too, but we're probably going to have one entrance, probably still block curbside off at Pine Street. And then people who want to come in will come in through the parking lot entrance in the lobby and exit that way. That might change by the time we get there, but that's the current plan. And then that'd be our soft opening. And then the week after that, we'd announce it much more publicly in social media and all of that. So it would be on our website, that first soft opening, but we just won't push it out in a really big way and kind of get used to it. At the same time, the computer appointments are progressing too. So we're not waiting till reopening to advertise the computer appointments more. That's all happening here very shortly. I think that's kind of reopening plans in a nutshell. Anything else on reopening before I switch topics to budget process? I'm going to scroll down just a little, see how much time I have. No? Okay. Anybody really excited to come during a preview?
Yeah.
Danny's hand. Fritz, Melanie.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So for budget process, so a lot of you are new, and you might have heard me talk a little bit about budget at our orientation, but as a reminder, the city's fiscal year budget cycle ends at the end of June, and then July is a new budget. Right now is the budget process where we're assembling our budgets. They're going through drafts and review internally within the city, and then budget committee meetings happen in May. And it sounds like they might be virtual or they might be in person. Have you heard, Renee, anything else on whether it's been decided yet?
I haven't seen anything or heard anything. It's not even showing up on our agenda, our forecast yet, so I don't know.
I'll be there. Thank you, Renee. I'll be back in just one second. Okay. So the library budget is, our funding comes predominantly from the county through WCCLS. And while the budget has shifted over the last several years of weaning off of overdue fines even before overdue fines went away, as people were migrating to ebook content instead, and the county stopped charging fines for youth material, and then of course stopped charging fines for everybody this year. So that part's going away, but the big chunk of our budget is still basically status quo of getting our funds through WCCLS. So our budget doesn't have any major things that we think will be, controversial or really big asks or anything like that. But it's always nice. This group as an advisory board is really helpful, especially during those levy years, that we sometimes will do some brainstorming about, well, what if the levy didn't pass and what might that mean when it's not a levy year? Levy for the election, it's usually more that I'm just informing you, letting you know this is the process. You can watch it on the city's YouTube channel if you want to, but otherwise I'll just let you know kind of the big picture and the highlights. Any questions about budget process? Okay. Next one up is behavior policy. So that one, I might have said the wrong thing last time. I should have gone back and watched that part of the meeting, but I was misremembering a few things about our policy work from a year and a quarter ago or so, and we had a slightly different group of people. So some of you who were on the board, say 2 years ago, year and a half ago, will remember that you had just approved let me think about what it was called. It's like the access to technology one. We had done a really big one. We'd done the collection management policy or collection development policy. And then we did the technology one. And then I hadn't actually remembered to put that on the website because COVID happened. And I was remembering that I had. And so that's up there now. It's our new policy, which is now a year old. And then we had talked about the behavior policy. I had brought forward a draft policy saying we want to redo it, put in some tiers for the enforcement part. So the enforcement part of the policy before didn't go into a lot of detail about how we enforced and when we give warnings versus having someone leave for the day versus a week versus what if it's longer and what kind of behaviors warrant a short amount of time versus when do we go to something longer, like say something that's actually dangerous happening or someone's getting hurt versus just leaving, I don't know, like being a little bit rowdy or that kind of thing. So I had brought forward a draft that had laid out some of those steps in the enforcement section. And now on the staff side of things, we're revisiting that and adding in some changes to it. And so I hope to next month bring you a new behavior policy for approval. I think that it won't be that much different, but it is interesting to look at a behavior policy in a pandemic and think, how should we change anything if we do? I think that's all I wanted to say about behavior policy. And then OLA conference, I talked about that last time. I gave you not such a great tour of the OLA website. I think some of you have gone into depth on it. As a reminder, that's coming up in April as well. And it's free. And I did email out the registration info. You do need to actually register yourself if you're interested, and that's what gives you access. It's just that the email I gave you gives you a code to do that. And so I wanted to see, I think Jane, you registered, right? Did anybody else register or think they're going to register?
I may.
So Adrian, we can still register?
Yep. Yeah, okay. I think you can register all the way up until probably the Probably the day of. I don't know. But you can always register even if you don't think you're going to do it live, but that will get you the access to the recordings. And they ask a survey question of what you think you're going to attend, meaning like what do you think you'll attend live, so that they can plan for enough moderators and so on in those sections. But it's okay to leave that blank. You don't have to know what you think you'll attend, or if you only know a couple of them but you plan to attend more, that's okay too. Just best guess. Jane, did you want to?
I'm going to go all day April 20th. I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretending I'm at a real conference, but I think it'll be really nice. And there's publishers and sessions that sound fabulous.
Glad to hear it. And there's let's see, what do they call it? There's a I think they're making some way to see vendors. I might be mixing up my conferences. There's also the American Library Association conference. I've been looking at their website recently. Did you see that, Jane? You're going to look at the vendors?
Yes.
Melanie, you might not like that a lot. See the other side of things.
I would love it. I got a little overwhelmed with the registration process, so I decided to come back and do it again.
Yeah,
I can open to attend.
There's a woman on duty, and she will help you.
Oh, good. Good to know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say the process is, it's a statewide conference. It's not a national, and it's a largely volunteer run. And I think OLA is a fabulous organization, and they do have paid staff. The person, Shirley Roberts, who's the paid staff person who's there to help you, she's great. She's been with the organization for a long time. But, if you're comparing it to a conference that you might have attended that has a lot of money behind it, it's going to look really different for the snazziness factor of the registration process. Good. And then, so National Library Week, April 4th through 11th, I mentioned we'll unveil the 6-word story contest. I hope to have the user survey go out that week and then just stay up for at least a month after that. And the banners that Public Works hangs up, those will be up downtown, actually probably before the end of the month too. So, it's a little bit different. Last year, this time, we just kind of had some staff remarks and that was it. We didn't have anything outward facing really for National Library Week. We'll do a little bit more. Hi, Lily, I see your question. Do you want to go ahead?
Well, so I've been thinking about this for a while, and for National Library Week, so the high school does homeroom class, and every week there's like a news update, and I was wondering if it would be okay to ask if they would be willing to give an announcement about National Library Week or promote the user survey.
Oh, I love that idea. It's okay with me. Yeah. Do you have a way to do that?
I know some people on the news group, so I can ask them if they'd be willing to put it in.
Yeah, that'd be great. If let's see, I can email you kind of the blurb, so to speak, of what we used for so I sent in an article for the Gazette that talked a little bit about National Library Week. There's also, since it's an American Library Association theme event, they put together a press kit. So they have a lot of graphics that are all done and free on the website, and, text that you can copy and paste and put into your own wording or your own marketing. So I can email that to you too. That sound good? Yeah, nice. Thanks. Isn't it so great having a high school rep on the library advisory board? Thanks, Lily. I'm writing this down.
Lily.
Yeah. Yeah, and the survey, I haven't sent. I mean, it's not done. It's draft, and I know I have some cleanup to do on it too. I need to send it in for translation too. So it's always hard. Translation sometimes takes several days or a week. It'd be nice to have it all together before, promoting it. But if I can't make it, I'll add the Spanish when I get it and still promote the English one and just keep them both open for longer than the month. Let's see. So I'll go on to user survey. So I sent you a draft. I've gotten a little bit of staff feedback as well. I know that, hello world. I did that survey, the updates late at night. and so as I was getting feedback, like, oh yeah, I could have had better grammar in a few spots or better consistency in a few spots. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing that and give me a moment here. I'll share the Survey Monkey in just a moment. My login expired and I have to do a new verification. Does anybody want to speak generally about the survey if you had time to look at it?
I took myself through it, and I think it's long. And then I always want to hear how we're going to reach the people that we really want to hear from. So, but I think that it covers a lot of good things. It feels a little long.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. It's the same number
Yeah.
of questions. Yeah, we talked about that last time. But yes,
Yeah.
I know it is long. Sorry, I think I cut you off, Stephen.
No problem. Yeah, no, I think with Jane, I would say I agree, and I think maybe it's not just the number of questions, but the just trying to make the questions themselves or any words or sentences, explanation sense as short as possible. That might help with sort of the whoever's getting surveyed, their sort of fatigue, right? So cutting out some of these things or trimming them might help a little bit. And then the other piece was when I was going through, I'm trying to remember now, did the positive to negative scales always go left to right? Normally you want to have the same sort of scoring mechanism across a survey. So I think that's about, never mind. I'm just looking at this number 4. It's still left to right is improving. So that's fine. It was a little bit different to see sort of like the stars on the other one. Yeah, a few suggestions on like wording, but besides that, I think it looked really good. I mean, I like that you put the sort of most important things up front, right? Hopefully the survey is designed such that if someone exit early, you still get their whatever questions they did answer.
I think they have to actually click on done.
Oh, do they? That's
but they have to. I think so. That's a good question. I should test that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the way these works, if there's like pages, it'll report if you complete a page. So you may want to, you can test it, right? But if it reports per page, you might want to separate, into 2 or 3 parts.
That's a good point. I feel like I've seen in the past like percent or number of incomplete surveys, but I guess I didn't really know, was that incomplete because the person just skipped ones and went to the end and clicked done, or did they actually just not get to the end and not click done? I don't know. And I know I have some inconsistencies with the scale. I need to go through those and make them consistent. Like you're talking about number 4, for example, I think is different than, where's the next one? Number 11, I think it ends a little differently.
Yeah, and then the first you have a 10-point scale, and then you have like a 5-star scale. So it just changes. I mean, I think it's okay, right? It's just something to try to avoid, but.
Yeah. So the 10-point, this is one of those that SurveyMonkey builds this in, and they really recommend keeping it because it allows you to compare yourself to other organizations.
It's a standard customer satisfaction
Yeah,
best
and that's the
method to use
one.
a 10-point scale. Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen, do you remember? It's always been at the end of our survey, and you recommended last year to move it to the beginning. But I've never tried to change the format of it because then it wouldn't be that same. It wouldn't feed into their database. But then let's see, the customer service one. This one it's just we just chose that. It doesn't have to be 5. It could be 10. I would probably just leave the intermediaries blank. But whereas I think one, if we're going to include the top one, we have to leave it as it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I kind of like the stars because it's a very sort of, again, low effort thing. Like if you're doing it as a survey taker, you know what 2 stars is versus 5 stars. It's pretty hard to mess that up, right? With the other scales, it's easier to accidentally invert them or something if you're not reading well. The other quick suggestion I had at the very beginning, you typically don't see this at surveys. It's is it Han Solo in Star Wars? Never tell me the odds. Just say enter a prize to win one of several or win a gift card. Don't say how many.
Bonus points for a Han Solo quote during a library advisory board meeting. That's the
really,
first. Love it.
Yeah. Notch up the geekiness at the board here. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, that's a good point. So you're talking about, does it show when I highlight? Do you see me highlighting this?
Yeah, this is 1 of 6, okay. So you could just say A or 1 of several.
Yeah, we've always said how many. I'm thinking like if we said A, people may think, well, my chances are really low. We also have public gifting rules, but I don't.
There's a rule, but you typically, when you see like a reward for survey, you don't get to see the odds. Would be my. So it must be a best practice versus sharing them. I don't know.
Yeah. What noted? Thank you. What else was there? Anything else on your list, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, with number 2, I mean, just slight things like if there's one thing we could do to improve the library, what would it be? I don't think you need to say you.
Yeah. I feel like the tone in this is more casual than usual too. Like I'm saying, besides all services restored and being fully open with no limitations, because otherwise everybody's going to say the same thing.
Right. No. Instead of if there was one thing you could improve at Sherwood Library, it would be if there was one thing we could improve at Sherwood. Yeah.
Yep. Got it. Good one. I'll just keep going. How about that number? Or anything else to say about question number 2? Anybody?
I think it's important to have some open entry boxes so people can write their answers. Yep.
Good. Yeah, I agree. I like having a mix.
Yes.
Number 3, we had other services, but I didn't want to list them all out. Most of them weren't used by very many people, like print pickup and interlibrary loan and virtual assistance, and we had some, new accounts and things like that we helped with. But I thought other would capture all of that. Anything? Comments on number 3?
I'm just curious why you're collecting this one, because
right.
You know how popular these services were, right?
So the reason I want it to be, we do, but I don't know if those are going to be the same people that do the survey.
Okay, that's fine as long as you're coupling it with something.
Yeah. So that then I could say, hey, well, this is someone who used a lot of curbside and book bundles, but didn't attend any virtual events. And then they're also saying, they have this opinion about those services, and just, it helps to know whether they used them or not. Whereas, yes, we know book bundles were popular. We know curbside was used. We know ebooks were really popular, but we're not collecting library card info. Yeah.
So Adrian, back on number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you ended up theoretically, I don't think it would would happen, but if you had, what library services did you use during the pandemic, and you had a whole lot of responses that said none of the above? Where does that lead? That just is like people just used other oddball services other than what you named. They're just oddball things, right?
Well, so if they use the library in some other way, hopefully they would choose this other, please specify.
Right.
But if they
I'm
didn't use anything,
if you press none of the above, what does that mean? What would that mean to you if you got a whole bunch that had that checked?
so that tells me that we didn't fill their need, or they didn't have a need during the last year, right? So they've been a patron kind of in hibernation, I guess. And so
they just rolled up. Okay.
Yeah, I think that most people who are going to hear about our survey are going to be people who used services during the pandemic, and that's normally the most people we get filling it out are people who interact with staff, and we're telling them, here's, please fill out the survey. Plus, we put it on social media, but those tend to be people who already are following what we're doing and using our services. I don't think there'll be a ton of none of the above. But I think it would be interesting, like, let's say if someone says they didn't use curbside, but they think we should continue curbside. That would be that would tell me something different than someone who used curbside, knows what it was, used it. I mean, we're not asking them to quantify, but then they also say that it would be really important that we continue it. Sometimes we get, with library services, sometimes we get a lot of, like, I think for the betterment of society, the library should do this thing, but I'm not going to use it. I think somebody will use it. But you get so many people thinking that way, like society is going to be better, our community will be better if you offer this thing. But then when we actually offer it, nobody uses it, or very few people use it. So I'm trying to kind of couple practical with, and also that's why this is phrased this way. How important is it to you personally that these new services continue to be offered even after the pandemic? Because someone might be thinking, well, what about immunocompromised people? Like, you should just have curbside all the time. But if they're not the immunocompromised person themselves who's saying it's important to them, we don't really know, I want to know, is it important for them, the person who's filling it out? Does that make sense? These two kind of go together. I do hear you. I mean, maybe it's...
I was thinking maybe of eliminating none of the above.
Oh. I mean, it's generally, in a survey, it's generally best practice to include a not applicable or none of the above.
Okay.
Because there are going to be people who need that, and it can be confusing otherwise, or make the data off. But if there's an argument, I mean, I'm hearing an argument for just not having number 3 at all. Give me something to think about.
I would want to know what services people used during the pandemic, especially, if we have another reoccurrence, or, we've got to go back into quarantine. It'd be good information to have to see what's important to people.
That's useful. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Melanie.
But on number 4, I was curious what the I don't know and the NA, the not
yeah.
know if you needed both of those. Yeah.
I agree. Staff caught that too. It probably would cut the I don't know and just
what's
say
the difference between critical and important?
Critical is more important than important. So critical to me, in the context of this question, I might think critical means like I'm not going to be able to use the library if you don't have curbside. Like that's critical for my use of the library. Versus important is this is my strong preference. I really hope that you have this for a long time to come, but I will still use the library. I just won't use it as much or as often or enjoy it or feel as good about it or something like that. That would, if I were a person answering that way, that would be one way of distinguishing versus somewhat important is kind of like I have a preference that you keep it, but I might not use curbside all the time. It would be convenient, or it wouldn't change. It would help me a little bit versus, I don't really care would be the not important. Book bundles. Someone answering critical might be like, that's the only way I get materials because there are obstacles for me to use the website and place holds or to have to call patron or call staff and get help placing holds. And book bundles was a way to just walk up and say, I want that and check it out. Virtual events might be a similar thing, like someone who just feels like they're not going to be comfortable for a long time coming back on site. Or for whatever other life stuff, that virtual events is, just this whole new service and they love it. And they're like that. I'm finally able to attend library events and never have before for some reason we just don't even know. And then I think, so if I drop the I don't know and not applicable could just be if someone's saying, maybe they don't want to say it's not important. They just don't really know how they feel about that. Or so it helps not skew the data, right? So if we got a whole bunch of people saying not important, but what they really meant is I don't have an opinion on this. Those are two separate things. Does that make sense?
It does. I think I don't know is even more clear maybe than the NA, but that's just my opinion. Either one is fine, Adrian. I was going to suggest that you take out the personally of that sentence, but I understand now from what you said why that's important to leave that in from the question. But I think you can edit that sentence just a little bit more. You've got two twos in there, TO twice, right. And then right before be offered. And then
oh yes, thank you.
Yeah, and then you can I would even take out the comma even, and just to make it more succinct, and just say continue to be offered after the pandemic, just so people don't get lost in what you're meaning, what you're wanting.
Yeah, I agree with that last set. It almost looks a little double-barreled, and yeah, I don't know. My thought on this one too. I don't know if you agree with me, Melanie, but I could see people getting confused with not important, I don't know, and NA. So you might get a lot of mixed responses where people are meaning the same thing. So it might be, you could even put, I don't know. I wouldn't want to put not important / NA, but I don't know. Might want to think about getting rid of one of those or both of them and just do not important, somewhat important, critical.
So you're saying just 3 categories? So they're saying get rid of
4 because you're
one of
counting 0.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe you could leave. I don't know. I'm tempted to get rid of NA at least because I think
I agree with everybody. Have 5 categories, but now so if it were. So I'm hearing, I think, Melanie, you were saying, I don't know would be better than NA.
That's just my opinion.
And Stephen, are you saying one of these, but it doesn't matter which one, keep one of them?
I would take out NA, but yeah, I'll let you decide.
Yeah.
That would be my...
Yeah. Well, I'm good with take out NA.
I'm just thinking when you see the data, it might be confusing, right? If you see a bunch in these buckets, it's a little confusing which one's which.
Yeah, the not important or I don't know. I'm okay with those being together, actually, because really in terms of how we plan our services, it's going to be how many people chose important or critical for if we do anything different. If a bunch of people say I don't know or not important, and let's say we get some somewhat importance, then we may phase out these things sooner. handy having people with survey experience on our board too. Thank you. I don't know if all our new members know this. I can't remember how much was shared when we did intros, but Melanie and Stephen, for your jobs, you both have had over the years a lot of survey experience, right? Marketing and surveying, right, Melanie? Is that yours? And Stephen, yours is more on the technical side of data. Is that right?
I have designers who work for me and with me and around me that have survey experience, so I've absorbed some of it through osmosis, I suppose.
Yeah, that's good. Now we already talked about number 5. Should we just keep going? This one we've asked the exact same question for a number of years in a row, so it is nice to be able to compare. But we could change it. But I got the general sense that people were okay with this one. Is that keep going? Number 6 and 7 we added last time when this board had approved a draft, but we never used it. So these were new questions that were never used. We had a lot of discussion on staff and with the board about how it would be really helpful to know what the audience is here who's giving these various answers, so that we knew, if someone's saying that programs, for example, they probably mean programs for members of their household, and members of their household are this old. So that's why this is on here. And then the languages spoken as well. We had a lot of early drafts with listing a whole bunch of languages, but we decided with Sherwood being what Sherwood is, it probably is sufficient to just say English, Spanish, and then other, and have people type it in. So I feel like since we haven't tested these questions yet, and there was so much discussion about them and justification for why they'd be helpful, I feel like we should just let them be and see how they do on the survey, and then decide whether to include them on the next survey. That's kind of my opinion, but I do know they make the survey longer. That's really part of how it got to be so long this time. But that's background. I just give you my opinion, and then you can.
I think those are easy questions to answer.
Yeah.
Important, though. People just click and go.
Yeah. Jane, I'm not looking at the agenda right now. Are we way over time? Do you have that still in front of you? Should I look at it?
We are a little bit. Yeah. We're going to get our council report. I think you really haven't talked about strategic planning.
Let me just scroll down here.
But it's important to talk about the
yeah. Oh, I went into the user.
That's
sorry,
okay.
I skipped a whole section.
Well, it fits in with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
National Library Week.
Yeah, sorry about that. The strategic focusing, that won't take as long as it says. Okay. I'll just keep going. Okay.
And Adrian, sorry, I was on mute. Just a quick recommendation on 7 or suggestion, take it or leave it. Would you want to say what services would you like to receive language, or what's the right way to say it? I'm just nervous people will mark languages that are spoken, but it doesn't really impact their use case for the library. So it's basically what languages do they want to receive services from the library in? I don't know, I'm not wording this well, but I think you kind of get my drift.
I do. I'm having memories floating forward from earlier conversations. I think we maybe had something like that to begin with. And I think and it might, I don't remember if these were staff discussions or board discussions or both, but my memory is that we had a much longer version of this, and maybe even 2 versions of this, with like what language is spoken at home, but also what services would you want, and then decided to just simplify and ask. Part of how we might use this data would be what services should we be providing in other languages, but also what books should we be buying in other languages? So someone may be able to use the library speaking English 100% of the time, but perhaps they would prefer to read, or at least read some of their books in another language. That would help us. And then just understanding too, for cultural background. I'm not quite sure what word to use there, but let's say people are using the library, comfortable using English in the library, interacting with staff, reading English books and so on, but they feel tied to a culture that we're not really bringing forward in our services, through our collection or our programs or so on. That might help us too. So I think, now culture and language doesn't always go together, of course, but I think this can be used in a lot of different ways. And some of it is going to be aspirational.
For your reporting as is anyway, so yeah.
Yeah. We have data from we don't have current data right now, but in the past we've asked the school district for languages spoken at home, and that's been really useful. We need to get fresh data on that. So that would also tell us, like, let's say if the school district is asking that same question, but we ask, and it's a slightly different demographic, if you've got families in Sherwood with school-age children versus adults and people who don't have children, are there differences there? Are there languages that aren't represented or represented more or less? Yeah. I think that was a big conversation about how to simplify that one. Should I keep going?
Please.
Okay. Let's see. Approximately how many people in your household have a library card? This was also a big one. It was a new question. We haven't actually used it yet, but we were trying to get kind of an idea, because we know when we look at our library cards, which is around 12,000 library cards for Sherwood Public Library, but a lot of those are one card per household, and so sometimes it just skews the number a little bit for how many people are we serving. This might help with that.
I take out approximately.
Oh, well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Just how many people in your house, how many people because you're asking for a number.
Yeah, you don't need to approximate between 1 and 2.
Yeah, you're having.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Number 9. Number 9 is one that I'd like to leave as is, that it helps us to answer the EDGE assessment, which is the one about public-facing technology and the impact of people having access to technology in libraries and what they're able to do with that. So that's where these categories come from. If we wanted to maybe add a word or something, into the examples, we could, but it's here for a reason.
I just have a few nitpicky things there, Adrienne, just small stuff. Some of the categories have periods after them, some don't. I would just make that consistent. And I would lowercase the E and EG just.
Me too. Yes.
Yeah. For consistency. And then, and I don't know if you want to put something about the library of things in there, but that was just one thing I thought of. It may already be in there, didn't see it.
I don't think it is. It kind of fits into a few different categories. I think, so the intention here, so we have library of things that are tech oriented. We have ones that are more like, even say, social, with the board games or entertainment. Some of them are for crafting. Some of them might be more for education, homeschooling, business even. Someone could make a podcast for their business. So it's more not the thing itself, but what does the person do with the thing?
That makes sense.
I'll keep going. Number 10. So this one, I didn't ask anybody. We didn't have a conversation or anything. I just put this in here when I was revisiting the survey over the weekend, and I was trying to think of a way to ask people an open-ended question about equity And I thought of like, should I be asking, like for check marks, bullets, and check all that apply kind of thing. But I thought we might actually get the most meaningful responses. It might be very few responses, but it might be the most meaningful responses if it's left open-ended. So that's why I ended up this way. There's been some staff conversation about should it be more of a list with an other, but then we didn't have a list to put there, just the idea of should it be a list to be easier to fill out. Any thoughts on?
I think it's a good question. I would just shorten it and just say what changes would make the library and cut out would you like to see to make, and just say what changes the library. Yeah. But I'm very intrigued by what people would respond to that. I love open-ended questions, to get people's opinion.
I like that. Shorten it up. Any other thoughts? Keep going. Good, thank you. This question, I changed it because I felt like I needed a preamble, since it feels so weird to ask about the facility if they might not even remember what it looks like. I haven't been in there for so long. But other than that, I left everything the same. This really helps us to make a case for our facility master plan and for expanding the library. And we've asked this question, or very close to the same question, for a few surveys now, which is what got us the oomph to even get a facility master plan going, specifically asking for things like these first 4, and then access to the upstairs mezzanine. I think we haven't actually asked that part of it yet. We added it last year, but I don't think we've actually asked it yet. And I think these have been added more recently as well. I'll keep going. Number 12.
I have a question. Could you go back up to where you're there, 11, those were, I don't know, Melanie, maybe you'd be better at editing on that. It's sort of clumsy. It says you haven't been able to use building much these days, if at all.
I think you could just take out if at all.
Yeah, okay. And then we're still playing, yeah. How important are these? Yeah.
So take out much these days. Is that what you mean?
I think you could just take out if at all. Just say you haven't been able to use our building much these days.
Period.
Okay.
Yeah, period.
We're still planning for the future. How important are they? Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah. That's nice. Thank you. Okay. Number 12. In the past, we've asked a long version of this, and we list a bunch of types, and we ask people, but it's a lot of jargon, and I think this might be a question that we added last time but didn't send out the survey, just to simplify it. I think I like this version better than what we've had in the past. I think people don't always know what we mean when we say it in library speak too. Keep going. Number 13, on average, how often do you attend library events? I added whether virtual or in person. I'm not sure what to expect with this one. Should I change the EG to lowercase and just everywhere?
Little E, little G. Yeah.
And but otherwise, it's the same question we had on here from the previous version. Our staff that do programming really want to know this too. And then this one, I did like a face palm a little bit when I was reading it again, going like, oh man, well, of course there are obstacles, like, yes. But I do think it's important. I mean, there may be obstacles to attending virtual programs.
Yes.
There's so many, right, obstacles. There may be obstacles to attending in person, even when we can, that we haven't thought about. So I think even though the question seems like there's so many obvious answers, I think we'll still get some really interesting
I think
feedback.
maybe word it so a little more open-ended, because right now it's, are there obstacles to attending? That's a yes/no question.
Oh, good point.
So I would
What
say what obstacles or
What obstacles do you have for attending? What
are
exist
there?
for you?
What obstacles keep you from attending library events? Question mark.
Yeah.
And I would take out, what would you like us to know about? Because that's what the survey's for. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Obstacles keep you from
What
attending
obstacles? Yeah.
library events. Melanie, it's a beautiful thing to see you just take something and make it better like that with words. Thank you for being here.
Good job.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then it is a long survey, isn't it? This one, I think staff might want one more on here. I think actually, Crystal, you were talking about an outreach question in here. This is in the past, this question has been really important for staff too. I did delete some things, so it feels like it's less meaty than it was because we're doing them. Like we had Chromebooks on here and we had hotspots, and those are coming. But particularly this first one is really useful. In-person homework help, we probably won't be able to do that again for a long time. But I wonder if with so many kiddos being behind after distance learning, if there might be more of a demand when it is available, and perhaps people not being able to afford tutors that they could afford in the past. Video conferencing was on there before. Translators, I think we added that last time and didn't use it yet. So I keep going. What are we doing really well? We've asked that a few years in a row, and that's what it's a feel-good one too. It's nice for staff, and then I can put things in management reports and so on too. And a lot of service stories come out of that. And then just the last open-ended: is there anything else you'd like to share that we've asked again too? And sometimes we get additional suggestions or not so much complaints, but on occasion, mostly just good stuff, positive stuff. I mean, this I haven't fixed yet. The enter the drawing part, I need to change that link. Whew. Any last thoughts?
Adria, are you going to be sending this out one more time after our little corrections that we made for us to look at, or is this the final look at?
I could do that. I could do make the changes and send it out and not to vote on it, but to just be like, here it is. I'll start to promote this in a small number of days, and then if
I'd like to see it where I could print it out and kind of really look at it. Yeah,
I would too. Thank you.
Okay. So this would be something, Jane, we wouldn't have to do like a vote on it so much. I mean, it's more like you're advising, and this is really helpful, and I'm folding your changes into it. But if anybody has anything they want to say of like anything that hasn't been said yet, this would be a good time to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to go forward, make the edits, get ready to send it out, ask for translation as well, and just keep going forward.
Okay, could I make one other suggestion? Could you just go back to the question that has where we first mentioned the big E, little g? There were a whole bunch of,
Okay, let's see. How do I go back?
Oh, well, I can call you on it later. It was just more make it easier reading.
Number 9. Are you seeing number 9 on the screen?
That was the one that each topic where, like it says, employment, like for instance, there, the top choice on number 9. I would have it with a big E, employment, and a big B, business. I think it will be easier to read and separate that they're two separate topics: unemployment, business, and then under that education, and then under that health with a big W for wellness. And I wouldn't use an umlaut, I'd use an AND.
Writing notes. Anybody else?
And then under that, citizen engagement, a big C, a big E. For social connection, big S, big C. So they give each noun more importance than being small case, all small case.
All right, thank you. You got a thumbs up. We got a thumbs up from Melanie.
Yeah. Oh, from Melanie? Oh.
Yeah.
Verbal thumbs up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good. All right, thank you. Any other final thoughts from anyone on the survey? Questions or comments?
I think we got to look at the clock.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Can I just give like the 30-second strategic focusing update? So we had been using that new strategic focusing. It was kind of a diagram, with the different colors and so on. And the wording that went with it said all of those priorities were in addition to the top priority of reopening the library when it's safe to do so, right? And so now that we're in this period where we're transitioning and putting all our focus onto reopening, those other, in my opinion, those other priorities still exist and they're important, but the document feels very much like it's not, like it's already out of date. We're working on some of the stuff. We've accomplished a lot of the things on there. I think a really good topic for our next meeting would be revisiting it as an iterative process and seeing, what do we do next? So we'll have, at the next meeting, we should be open, at least to, limited visits, and we could start to perhaps change some of those categories or update them, maybe add a category, take a category away, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to kind of get like a, yes, that makes sense, or something, from you, if next time we spend some time on that, revisiting. I'm seeing some nods. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Super. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, let's turn to Counselor Browse.
Well, you guys are lucky because I don't really have much tonight. Last night was a pretty simple meeting. We before the meeting discussed what are called CEP grants, and we decided on who was going to get what amount of money, and that's always an awesome thing to do, to give money away. As far as the meeting itself, just basic business, adopted the Brookman concept plan for the future of Brookman Road. Other than that, there's not a lot of exciting stuff coming up, except for budgeted May, which we'll have more information about coming up soon. So if you have any questions for me about anything, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's all I have. Oh, it is exciting for those of you who are interested in the Senior Center. That is my other role, is to be the liaison with the Senior Advisory Board. And we did approve the purchase of a van for the seniors in our community and the senior center. So that's really, really exciting.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions, that's all I have.
I was muted. I was saying that's good news about the van. I meant to ask Kristen, and I forgot we were talking about so many other things. Did the council goal setting, was that last Thursday?
Yes, that was last Thursday. The goals are essentially still the same. We tweaked a little bit here and there. I think the most exciting aspect for me is the last category of community engagement. And so we're going to be walking down the DEIA road. So I'm really excited about that. Councilor Garland and I are going to take a stab at a diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility statement to present to the city and the staff for your feedback. So we might be tapping on your shoulder, Adrian and Crystal, to get some of your input. But I'm really, really excited to be a part of that process. That was the biggest change. The other categories, there were some small tweaks here and there of things that we've already completed or just additional information. But yes, it was a successful goal setting session.
Good. Good. All right. Do members of our board have other business they want to bring forward? We don't have any public comments. Do you feel you need more time, Adrian, to finish something?
There we go. I was just sharing it when last time I hid my unmute button. I mean, if people want, I could bring up that graph I was talking about, but I think I said what I needed to say. I'm totally fine with being done 10 minutes early.
Okay.
Melanie's got her hand up.
Hands up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm fine. I don't want to take a lot of time. I was just curious if you'd heard anything and gotten any response about the Dr. Seuss books. I got the article and everything you sent. I didn't know if you had any community public feedback from that, Adrian.
No, I haven't. We had some staff discussions about what's in our collection and what our plans are, that we, what our response would be if we get questions from the community, but we haven't, to my knowledge, gotten any. Oh, I didn't realize Fish got out and now he's asking to come back in. Whoops. There we go. Welcome back, Fish.
Sorry, thanks.
Yeah. I apologize. I didn't notice when you dropped out. So was it just very brief?
Yeah, just now actually.
Okay. We were just talking about, Melanie was asking about if we had any questions about the Dr. Seuss books. I would say no. We had staff discussion about how to respond if we do get questions. Let's see, there's 6 books that are, I just turned the video off. Gavin's here. 6 books that the Dr. Seuss publishers are ceasing publication on. We own 3 of them right now, and as you can imagine, they have holds on them. As soon as news comes out, everybody wants to see. I placed holds on them too. Like, oh yeah, I know 2 of those, or one of them really well. I didn't know the other 2 really well. So when they do come back and are no longer popular, we'll look at them like we do everything else in our collection and see what condition are they in and so on. Was it Fritz?
Do you think they'll really come back, Adrian?
I mean, library materials are supposed to come back. So I want to hope for the best, but do you mean like sometimes people will steal things or not steal, but like they'll go lost and they'll not come back? And is that what you mean?
Kind of. Well, with all the attention that's gone on, I'm just wondering if those books will be on eBay.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the price will skyrocket. They'll become quite valuable even if they're used and have stickers on them. That's a good point. It could happen. That's happened. I don't know about with Dr. Seuss books necessarily, but we have had books go out of print and they become quite valuable, and
Yeah.
it becomes a risk. I think there are books that are low demand, like before the news came out about the publishers, those were the books that were always on the shelf, and all the other Dr. Seuss books were the ones that were checked out. So the demand for those was low, the local community interest was low. We won't seek out to purchase the ones we don't have, or to replace these when they become too worn out, or if they don't come back. I think it will just kind of naturally cease to be a hot topic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if we were open, fully, and having those longer conversations with our patrons at the desk, more just kind of conversational interactions, maybe we would have more feedback from patrons, but we haven't had any feedback that I've heard of yet. Yeah, good question.
All right. Anything else from the people? I'm going to adjourn us, and it's 5:24.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.